Today's teaser just a touch different. Not quite sure what was going on with our video and audio syncing. The audio is all top notch, but for those of you watching it, yeah, it's a bit sketchy. So sorry about that, but normal service will hopefully resume in a couple of days. Cheers, appreciate your patience. Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible. If you like the idea of a casual yet meaningful chat about the Bible with a couple of mates, listen in. Something here could be good for you today.
Today is day 224, covering Jeremiah 1, 2 and 3. If you need a brief overview of those chapters, they're in the description below.
I realised I didn't have my photo of Archie placed correctly, so I needed to move it mid that.
Yeah.
I was supposed to get a photo of Kinsey up here at some point, really. It's just typical, like, first parent, first kid, second kid deal. But, you know, whatever. Kid's cute.
Yeah.
Anywho, so new book, my boy. New book. Old Jeremiah, Jezza.
About time. Izzy was dragging on.
It was, though.
With its brilliance.
Good little segue in it, because Jezza is actually the longest book in the Bible besides Psalms. So we're in for quite a stretch with Jezzy, J-Dog, whatever we end up settling on. Could be any number of them. So apparently the first time that Jeremiah had this written, it was all dictated. So he had it dictated to a guy called Baruch. And the first time he had it read out in public and then read out for state officials and the king, and that was King Jehoiakim, who wasn't a very good egg. And he disliked what Jeremiah had written so much that he had it burned page by page. And so Jeremiah redictated everything in more detail, which is the book of Jeremiah we have today. So yeah, that's a bit of fun, isn't it? Written in the 627 to 586 BC sort of time frame. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. Kind of similar vibes to Isaiah. So yeah.
Yeah. From what we've read so far, obviously, because we read ahead, there is a lot of that same sort of death, destruction, repent, turn. It's too late. That's pretty classic of the prophets, though, I suppose, a lot of them. So, yeah, that's really cool. That, you know, a king burns in, he's like, all right, I'm going to give it to you again, but the longer version.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Baruch, because I've just written all this. Now I'm writing it again in more detail. But
yeah, nah, he was buzzing. He was getting paid.
I was going to say
that. Like, he just gets... Yeah, wines on Baruch. Last name Obama.
Baruch. Go on.
All right, so you to go first if you want, mate.
Yeah, it was just a couple of like little tiny points I had to begin with. First of all, I love how when God first called Jeremiah to write this, so the calling of Jeremiah, which is Jeremiah 1 verse 4, it's saying, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, I'd set you apart, I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Verse 6, our sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak, I am too young. And it just gave me such Moses vibes, like that sort of humility, like I'm not good enough to do this, but actually it's the whole, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the calls, which is something I've said a lot, but not in a good few months. So always good to get that.
Yeah.
And out back of the Moses vibes, in verse 9 it says, then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I've put my words in your mouth. And that kind of gave me vibes of Isaiah, where Isaiah had the vision of the hot coal placed against his lips. And so I was like, oh, cool, like the way it's sort of tying those together to give us a sort of a Moses-Isaiah collab.
Love that. And then which one is it that the prophet that eats the sweet scroll?
Oh, interesting. I sense you're Googling that by that hammering away on your old school keyboard.
Ezekiel. And also Revelation. John also eats a scroll. Everyone was eating scrolls back then.
Everyone. Food was scarce.
Yeah. That similar kind of thing of like the word going through being digested. I love that. Yeah, that's cool, man. Jeremiah 1:13 was my first one. The word of the Lord came to me again. What do you see? I see a pot that is boiling, I answered. It's tilting towards us from the north. So another reason to believe the Bible is often figurative and analogous, right? What I mean by that is, you know, there are some fundamentalist Christians who believe that the words are all literal. And I'm not saying that I know and they don't or anything by any means, but I'm just saying if God is literally giving Jeremiah visions here and asking Jeremiah to interpret those visions, then by definition, that is figurative, right? Not literal. you know, so the way he communicates is often through images for the prophets. Reminds me of how he communicated Joseph, and then John in Revelation, who we've already mentioned twice today. So yeah, fairly big stuff there.
That's cool. Yeah, I hear you.
Awesome.
So my next one then was 117, which is saying, get yourself ready, stand up and tell them whatever I command you. Do not be terrified by them, or I will terrify you before them. Goes on then in 19 to say, they will fight against you, but they will not overcome you, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. And I just like this. It's this whole like prepare. First part is get yourself ready. You have to prepare. When God calls you, you need to prepare yourself. Then it's the stand up and say to them whatever I command you, which is like just trusting God, because it says don't be terrified by them, suggesting that he will be terrified by them. But trust, don't be terrified, or else you've got God to answer to, which is the scarier one of the two. And then I kind of like the fact that it was like, they'll fight against you, they won't overcome you, for I am with you and will rescue you, which suggests again that there will be a situation that he'll need rescuing from. So like if you read between the lines, it's like, this ain't going to be plain sailing here, Jezza, but God's got your back.
Yeah, love that, dude. Love that, dude. That's so cool. And yeah, I think it's interesting depending on the season, right? So there are seasons where there's a lot of time to prepare. We should always be prepared. Our candle should always be trimmed, right? And then there are other times where we do have to lean more onto the trust as well. Maybe less time to prepare, like literally just a deep breath and then off you go. But either way, those steps are all there. So that's really cool. I'll be honest, I don't actually really remember what I'm going on about with this next one, but it's the same as your next one. So if I talk gibberish, then you can just sort of mute my mic and just take over. Nice. So Jeremiah 2 verse 11, has a nation ever changed its gods? Yet they are not gods at all, but my people have exchanged their glorious God for worthless idols. I literally put, this is surely partially Satan's work, which I stand by, because now I'm starting to remember. It's kind of crazy, isn't it, that quite often the people who will most viciously and stubbornly defend a god or an idol is barking completely up the wrong tree. And yet you do hear, unfortunately, about lots of Christians and people who literally have the truth in their hands, who do apostatize or leave the faith or whatever. And it is just such a shame that that happens. And it seems to happen almost more for the truth than for the lie, in a weird way. I don't know.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm up to speed with your gibberish. The thing that I was picking out of that really was, like, it's basically saying, has the nation ever changed its gods? It likes its gods, basically. Obviously, small g, inverted commas, gods, yet they're no gods at all. But people have exchanged their glorious God for worthless idols. And it's like, I wrote it as like, the short term always seems better. The alternatives often seem better, but don't believe the lie of the enemy. Like, people don't stick with the long-term benefits of Christianity because they prefer the short-term benefits of everything else that the world offers them.
And I knew I was holding off because that's good. And that's exactly right? Because Christianity is the truth, and sometimes the truth is quite hard. Whereas if you want to make up your own purple spotted spaghetti monster god that will give you, I'm directly attacking another religion here, but 72 virgins when you die, then it's easier to want to believe that potentially if you're a lust-filled whatever. Yeah. So absolutely, the truth isn't always as easy as the lie, but it's still better because it's the truth. Just a quick one from me, 3:13. Actually, no, sorry, you've got 3:1. Go for it, mate.
Well, mine was sort of all parts of like 3 and through, really, because it says 3 verse 1, if a man divorces his wife and she leaves and marries another man, should he return to her again? But then later in 3:14 it says, return faithless people, declares the Lord, for I am your husband and I will choose you. So it's like, it's just using that against itself, really, isn't it? Where God said, well, you've done this to me, but I'm still choosing you again, which is just incredibly faithful of him.
Hosea vibes.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
I might throw a last one into tomorrow. Did you want to drop your last bit on of 3:13?
Yeah, we'll do it really quickly. So only acknowledge your guilt. You have rebelled against the Lord your God. You have scattered your favors to foreign gods under every spreading tree and have not obeyed me, declares the Lord. 3:13. God is so good to us. He will pay our fine if we just admit that we have one. You don't have to do anything else, people. Just admit that you're a broken sinner and God will cover you with his righteousness. It's amazing.
Very true. Alrighty, tomorrow's readings, Jeremiah 4, 5, and 6. And I promise you, Bevan, we'll be wearing a black t-shirt, which I've just noticed. How dare you?
In the meantime, please consider sharing this at 2 Brits in the Bible or with other people or whatever.